Welcome everybody to the District House. And tonight we have Dove Joans, and she is a woman of many gifts, including writing, storytelling, and what is most exciting to me, animal communication. And so welcome, Dove.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for everyone who's here. Thank you, Jacob. So Hannah, this is wonderful. I'm excited to dive in and talk about dolphins, consciousness, and corridors of connection for us humans.
Yeah, me too. So for us tonight, Dove is going to take us on a journey through a guided presentation that also has some exercises for us to participate in. And then I'll circle back. We'll share a little bit of dialogue before we turn it to you, audience. So if you have questions that come up during her presentation or our chat, save them for the audience Q&A at the end. And with that, is there anything else you'd like to share before you dive into the presentation?
Well, the first little dive in is 2 minutes of how I kind of got into dolphin communication and dolphin research 40 years ago. So when I was a child. So we can play that, and then we'll go into the presentation, because then I'll need a volunteer, pretty much whoever wants to come up and help me with the wonder of the human based in science and the aquatic world. Cool. Yes. When I was a child, I dove into interspecies communication with dolphins from one song of a humpback whale, Dr. Roger Payne's recordings. From there, I studied in the wild as well as with the sciences and the arts, and exploring animal communication from their world to ours. There's a saying among humans that there's 6 degrees of separation between you and me. Nature says it differently, closer to 2 degrees, especially with global warming and signs of the time. Dolphins' world, it's 2 degrees as well, yet 2 degrees of connection. Here's a glimpse into some of that connection.
Look at when I walk into the IWC with that body screen on, everybody in that room, from all of those countries, you'll see flags from I don't know how many nations there are. They're all in that room talking about 1,000 whales over here in the Southern Ocean. Over here, you have 23,000 whales that nobody in this room is talking about. Dolphins are whales. Size doesn't matter. This is whaling. This is whale. You know, we're not looking at it. And it's more serious because people who are eating the whales in the Southern Ocean, at least they're not being contaminated. They don't have the mercury level that these 23,000. So this problem is affecting people as well. These are crimes against nature and humanity.
You may ask yourself, what are the true signs of humanity? Development of consciousness, language, compassion, connectivity, and a sense of self. This could easily be the description of a dolphin, or you and I. So dolphins, consciousness, and corridors of connection with us humans. Why dolphins and District 216? Well, first off, dolphins help us open our hearts and our mind, much like medicinal herbs, plants, and psychedelics. Also, we are, as humans, we have this amazing 64 codes of DNA, but most of the time, they're dormant in us. So dolphins, nature, and animals, especially dolphins. So dolphins and whales are actually they're the masters of conscious breathing. And humans were scientifically designed to be unconscious breathers. So we have to do lots of things in our lives to become conscious in our breath each day. Dolphins help, just like medicinal plants and psychedelic, encourage new pathways of neurons to open up in our mind and heart, accessing different dimensions and memory connections. And we'll get to that because we evolved 100,000 years ago to an aquatic brain. Also, dolphins and the natural world help us heal our wounds and different traumas that we go through in life. Being with dolphins and humans that are coming from almost like a dolphin state allows more peace, love, and understanding with ourselves and other people. And most importantly, I shared this with Paxton earlier, but communicating with dolphins and whales and having close relationships with the natural world, it's a practice that most indigenous cultures live. So it's vital to them to have close communications with animals and nature. In fact, dolphins are their spirit guides. Animals are their spirit guides. They know how to be in sync. And sometimes with the way that we live our modern life, we kind of lose that connection and feel like, how can we access those corridors again? So the cool thing was, we evolved 100,000 years ago from the Neanderthal to the aquatic brain. So you can see a dolphin brain next to a human brain. You see all the lines and the folds? Those are emotional folds in the brain, which tells us that dolphins and whales have a very complex emotional life. We do too. We're evolving, but they've been evolving in the water and the ocean. There's some river dolphins for 40 to 50 million years. So this is the fun part. So I would like to have a volunteer to talk about the wonder of our science connections. Hi.
Michael.
Michael, I'm Dove.
Nice to meet you, Dove.
Nice to meet you too. Michael is, and all of us are designed to be connected to water. So we evolved 100,000 years ago. And so water is, you can, you're so cute. Water is how we breathe. So we get every other breath from the ocean. And we also get it from trees and nature. We also have the blood that goes through our body moves like an ocean wave. So that's another water element about us. So in Michael, he has 70 trillion cell memories, and each of them are surrounded by 10 molecules of water. So what water does, it's a transmitter and receiver of light and sound. So each of us are always communicating to light and sound. The thing with what we don't understand is there are invisible energies around Michael, around me, around each of us. So we deal with energy and with gravity. So our brain is always, why our brain gets tired at the end of the day, because we're always balancing ourselves with gravity. And that's why it's nice to get into water, because we're buoyant, right? We also have the electromagnetic field. So the way that we were designed scientifically, we actually are a mini-me version of our planet Earth. When we're born, we have 70% water to body mass. And as we get older, we lose the buoyancy, the water effect. So we have to do things to recreate buoyancy in our life. Music, art, all of the creation elements, doing exercise, all the things that connect us to water. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. So you can see universal wave patterns is flowing through each of us. We're all shaped by water every day. The frequency and vibration energy, it's mostly invisible. So we feel it, but we don't see it. Why I bring that up is because light and sound is the way dolphins and whales communicate, and we do too, right? And the pathways to communicate with dolphins and whales and other nature and other animals is through water. So our cells were designed for it, and our body is designed for it. We're already connected to our planet. We just forget that. And the cool thing, when Michael was up here, he has, and we all have, an electromagnetic field that stems from our heart and goes out, and we have an electrical field just like our planet. And the electrical field is our thoughts and feelings, and the electromagnetic stems from our heart. So we come into a room like we did tonight, and we sense through the electromagnetic field, and we communicate up to our brain where we want to sit, how we feel. So it's always, that's 5,000 times stronger than the electrical field, electromagnetic. So it's amazing to just the wonder of how we were created. Each of us, none of us is lacking this. We all have this electromagnetic heart forward dynamics that we can create and connect with everything that's also made of water. So plants, rocks. The cool thing about our cell memories, when I mentioned 40,000 neurons go back and forth between our heart and our mind, and then we have 70 trillion cell memories. And each of those cells have 10 molecules of water. So we store information in our cell memories. And those we can access. They're also sometimes sleeping. So the thing with everything has memory, and it has a memory coding, a rock, a mushroom, a tree, a plant, a dolphin, and a whale. What happens when you, as a sphere of electromagnetic and electrical energy, comes into another living being that's water-based, because we're on a water planet? We create this Vesica Pisces, which is, it's a simple geometric mathematical shape that over the centuries, people have called lens, eye, fish. And the womb, which we're all from, in Greek, the ancient Greek, womb means dolphin. So every time we come together with another person, we're creating a dolphin between myself and another person, between you and like Carrie, and you that you meet, or a dog, or a tree. We actually create a union. And this is actually the creation of life. It's the same shape as our eye. So we have lots of reminders. When I talk about corridors of connection, we have reminders every day that we're connected. It's a halo. It's divine glory. It's used in art, religion, architecture, math, and science. In fact, Christianity uses the fish as the symbol of Jesus. So they're using also the dolphin, that sacred connection. So what we have in common with dolphins is the aquatic birth. We both come from the womb, and dolphins in the wild, they will help a newborn take its first breath. Family, community, and love. Everything about a dolphin is that. When people take dolphins and whales and put them in captivity, it strips away the essence of a dolphin. And then what I showed you in their brains, there's lots of emotional folds. So they have a lot of emotional neurons and connectivity. We both have that. And we're connected to sound and feeling. That's why music moves us so much, because it's feelings into sound. So it shakes and opens up all of our cells that, remember, have the 10 molecules of water around it. So we're always communicating through water, through sound, through our feelings. And then highly structured social system. Dolphins and whales are thinking. They've been around for 40 to 50 million years. So did everyone bring your phone tonight? So that technology is sending wireless messages over vast distances. We developed that 40 to 50 years ago. So they've been practicing sending wireless messages over vast distances for 40 to 50 million years. So they're quite advanced. Play and curiosity. We have that in common, exploring and learning. And then telecommunication, which I just mentioned. The cool thing about our cells is because we're created out of water and we match our planet and we match everything on our planet, we have the possibility of regeneration. Also, dolphins and whales, like humans, experience grief, suffering, depression, and we all want to be free and have that sense of freedom in our life. And the freedom most of the time is really a choice that we make. Choosing whether to be kind, choosing, sometimes we choose when a situation happens in our life and we get upset about it. Sometimes all we have is the freedom to choose how we respond to it. So, what is consciousness? Anyone have any ideas about what consciousness is? You can speak up. Throw anything out. Do we all believe there's a consciousness? Yes? Awareness? Oh, good. Yeah, to be aware about something means you're conscious about it, right? Like when I talk about our breath, we're designed scientifically to be unconscious breathers. So we do lots of things to be aware of our breath. That's the music, the exercise, the making love, the gardening, all those things that connect us. So conscious breathing, dolphins and whales are masters. They only put one side of their brain asleep while the other one is conscious. So we are water spirit. So the cool thing is when we evolved to the aquatic brain, we have all this ancient memories, and most of the choices we make every day comes from our ancient brain. I met this Aboriginal elder in Australia, and he's the elder of and chief of the Bundjalung Nation, which is the whale nation. So his ancestors are whales and dolphins. And the collective consciousness. A lot of people walk around thinking that we're not connected, right? It's like, I don't have anything in common with someone, so why should I care about them? Sometimes a lot of people walk around thinking those things. But the cool thing is, if you talk to an astrophysics, every day we breathe out 7% of our DNA, which goes into the airstream. And 3 or 4 days later, on the other side of the world, we're giving our DNA to help a tree grow, a plant, affecting an animal. So we're always connected. And the collective consciousness is part of our cells, our DNA, combined with water and our breath. Because our breath is how we can exchange the sacredness of life with other people.
I'm going to tell an old story, an ancient story, from long, long way back. About a whale. My grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, Game we call it. Game Ngai Yuri. The old ancient white whale, the storyteller. The blue whale is my grandfather, the storyteller of the bottom of the ocean, the storytellers, the songman of the ocean, the caretaker of the ocean. Also give us visions of who we really are when they sing their songs. As they ride the waves, they dance upon the water, reaching for the stars, to give us a vision about who they really are. country like we do. They sing songs like we do. They dance like we do. Doesn't matter what color you are. We are all the individual spirit belonging to the one spirit of the water spirit. We are water people. As they ride the waves and disappear to the bottomless ocean, they are going down to teach the newborn to be free. So we gotta let them be when they're under that sacred ocean. So we are all one to protect and care for this ocean and care for them animals. It's a must for the future, today or tomorrow. It's in our hands. We are the next caretakers to pass it on to generation after generation.
Elder Lewis, has everyone heard of Dreamtime with the Aboriginal elders or Aboriginal culture? So they're the oldest living human race on the planet right now, in the modern version, the 100,000 years. And so collective consciousness to them is Dreamtime. It's an open channel where communication is always happening through dimensions, through nature, through animals. And most indigenous cultures, especially the Polynesian, will practice something called the hungi, which is a practice of breathing each other's breath. We can do a little exercise, if you would like, that has to do with our ancient memory. And you don't have to touch noses with someone else. You can do it with your eyes closed. Is everyone game for it? For an ancient memory? So we have an ancient memory of this sacred breath. And if we all close our eyes, imagine that you're either on top of a mountain, near the ocean, near a lake, and someone has just handed you a peace pipe. And you're going to sit there, you receive it, and you're going to take now, while you're sitting there in your chair or couch, you're going to take a breath in. And breathe out. You're going to take in another breath. And breathe out. That sacred breath that you're having with the peace pipe is in your ancient memories now. Why people love smoking and they consciously can't define why they need to stop. They will defend it to the end because it's part of our ancient memory of being connected to one another, sharing community, sharing the sacred breath. A lot of the times, when we get anxious or fearful or we doubt ourselves or angry, the one thing that we do is we hang on to our breath. We hang on to water, thinking that it will help us instead of breathing out, remembering that our breath connects us to life. We live in the modern world, and a lot of times we get triggered for things that bother us, or we get afraid, or we get doubtful, or we get angry about injustice, or whatever gets angry. And that's when most of the time we're holding our breath. It's always nice before we sometimes say something in our anger, in our fear, in our doubt, to just take a moment, close your eyes and say, I am connected. I am a wave of gratitude. I have this designed breath made up, given to me by water that makes me connected to everything. So I'm not, even though I've been working with dolphins and whales and other animals most of my life, I get triggered all the time. It's a daily thing. The thing with humans, unlike the rest of the animal kingdom, is we think in negatives. We do things in negatives. All the other animals in the animal kingdom, they live in the present moment and they don't understand negatives. If you say to a dog, don't pee on the carpet, the communication they get is pee on the carpet. They don't have knots and negatives. So when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling angry, when we're feeling fearful, we can take a moment to think, what would I like instead? And choose a positive action. Breathe into that positive action. Think of a positive statement that you can say of, I'm a wave of gratitude, I'm a wave of forgiveness. And give yourself a moment to breathe. Check in, am I holding my breath? So, pass the leaf of peace. That's a dolphin game that I've played with lots of dolphins in the wild. It's also an indigenous practice. If you meet not only, well, the Chumash Indians, they're the ones that believe dolphins are their ancestors. So Chumash Indians live here. They have a symbol called the alakoi, which means to go in peace. And it's dolphins around a cross, right? The center of a cross, or the four directions. And their ancestor of the Rainbow Bridge means their folklore is when their ancestors were crossing the Channel Islands, some of their people fell into the ocean. And then their God felt sorry or pity for them and turned them into dolphins. So they have a close connection with dolphins. And so passing the leaf, when you meet a Polynesian, they will give you a leaf, a human Polynesian. So indigenous practice the same gift that a dolphin does, which is when you're in the wild with them, dolphins play this leaf game, but it's not competitive. It's cooperative. So whoever has the leaf, like this one dolphin has it in its mouth. Sometimes they'll put it on their nostrum, their nose. Sometimes they'll put it on their arm. And when they're ready to let go, then they'll let go of the leaf and another dolphin will get it. So the pass the leaf of peace, I was taught this. Remember when President Trump was running for presidency and he was running against Hillary Clinton and social media all of a sudden got mean? I mean, extra mean. People were saying things that you wouldn't say to a person to their face. Everyone felt like they had the freedom to be cruel. And this wild dolphin, I was living on Maui at the time, swam over to me and gave me a leaf and said, you guys are supposed to be passing the leaf of peace with one another. So dolphins and whales know what we're doing on land through the collective consciousness. Because they're masters of conscious breathing, they know because of what an Aboriginal elder would call a song line. So we all communicate through why I talked about a little bit of the science beforehand, because we're all communicating sound waves and vibrations. So if you talk to any scientist, any physicist, any sacred geometry, they will talk about that light, sound, and energy make up our universe. So our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions create sound waves. And really, when we hear the dolphins and the whales, how my life was changed from one humpback whale sound, because it opened up, I didn't know it at the time when I was 14 years old, but it opened up the ancient part of my brain where I felt loved. I felt peaceful for who I was. It didn't matter what anyone else said. It was the first time in my life I wasn't being bullied. I wasn't being hurt. And I felt like I was accepted for who I am. And that's what dolphins and whales are trying to remind us, that we're already connected just through science alone. We don't have to prove ourselves. We're all a work in progress. Every day we're choosing what kind of sound waves, feeling waves, thoughts we're going out through our choices and actions. Who wants to play the Pass the Leaf of Peace? Would anyone like to play? And we get to use telecommunication. So the masters of telecommunications are dolphins and whales, and we can use our phone to use the QR code, and it will link to a photograph. So if you have something in your life that has been frustrating, a person that is hard for you to forgive, you can take a leaf and you can pass it to that person. You can send it through your phone. Just by using the QR code, there's 2 different leaves there, and there's also a leaf meditation on my website that you can watch. And watching leaves float underneath the water, it is very meditative. It is very zen. Because a leaf, who knows what the sole purpose of a leaf is? But they're transmitters and receivers of light and sound, just like our DNA. So our DNA is a transmitter and receiver of light and sound. That's how amazing each of us are. We're designed to be regenerative. We're designed to be transmitting and receiving light and sound. So this reminder of Pass the Leaf of Peace. If there's an issue in your life that you want to use the QR code, you're welcome to come up and get closer to the QR code, get the leaf, screenshot it if you like, and then you can send a text saying whatever you want to say, to just have a moment of like, let's have peace between each other. Let's smoke the peace pipe together. Because I think about, if I do something where I'm not conscious, I do something where I'm reacting instead of choosing, because I get triggered about how I feel like I was hurt or wrong, I typically go back and offer a leaf of peace, saying, I'm sorry, I was just feeling overwhelmed. So we're always given that choice. You know, time is elusive. We can go back and actually make amends. We can help change the wave pattern frequency. If it's something that we're stuck on, we can send it to ourselves and say, I forgive you. You know, a lot of times we're just too hard on ourselves. And dolphins and whales have reminded me over and over. Like one time I asked a wild dolphin in Australia, what can I do for you in the ocean? You know what he did? Or throw up a piece of plastic trash. That was in the 80s. We have been polluting the ocean with, you know, unsustainable plastics for a long time. They're so patient with us. But when I asked, how can I help? It's like, clean up the bloody ocean, right? So they're super patient with us. They're loving. When I've communicated with other animals, like one woman was going to put a dog down. And my friend who didn't believe I could communicate with animals called me and said, oh my gosh, my favorite dog. It was a Rottweiler, I think. Or no, a pit bull. So I'm in Hawaii. He's in Washington State. This is a guy who did 150 Special Forces missions and came back alive. He doesn't believe in this. He thinks this is airy-fairy. Collective consciousness, all that stuff. He doesn't believe. Until his dog is going to be killed. I mean, the dog that he loves. It was the woman that he was dating, right? And she was an alcoholic. So I said to him, send me a photo. So why indigenous people didn't used to let us take photos of themselves is because a photograph, why I'm giving you this leaf, is it freezes cell memories. A photograph of an indigenous person freezes their DNA. So if someone sends me a photo of a dog that's about to be put down, it allows me to tune in to the water molecules of that DNA of the dog and ask what's going on, right? Can I talk with you? So I'm in Hawaii, Washington State. Text me, telecommunication, through the phone, the photo. And you know what the dog said? This is how kind animals are, so patient with us. And I said, what's going on? You know what he said about the woman that was about to kill him? His pet parent? She's just being a little confused. He didn't say, or it was a female dog. She didn't say, she's a bloody alcoholic, right? Instead, she says she's just being a little confused. All I'm doing is trying to protect her, and it's my duty too. So I actually call him. I tell the special forces man the communication from the dog, and that woman ended up giving the dog to him, and that dog became his service dog. So it's really beautiful what telecommunication can do for us. Why when we look at a piece of art, why art is so special is because it helps open our DNA. It helps trigger pictures, music, all of that helps us feel more alive, more connected. Why communicate with nature and animals? It's because it asks us, it brings it back to us to say, what do we value in life? What's important to us? And see, we have the nature of nature designed in us, just the way our cells are, our DNA, our breath, our blood, even saltwater tears. We match the ocean that way. But we're the little N. The big N is nature. And nature always has the first and the last word in what every day? What do we love to see early in the morning? And what do we love to see at nighttime when the sun goes down? A sunrise and a sunset. So nature is always talking to us. And the birds will sing in the morning, and the birds will sing as the sunset. So nature always has the first and the last word, talking to us, saying we're connected. Communication with nature and non-humans leads to more compassion and kindness. It really starts with being kind to ourselves and more compassionate and patient with ourselves, not expecting us to be perfect. We're just a work in progress. We're learning each day. We're exploring each day. Conservation and care, biodiversity, and planetary renewal. So we're equipped, because we're a transmitter and receiver of light and sound, to be in renewal. So the last slide is our friends. So those dolphins were taken in Lanai with a GoPro. So I just stayed pretty much in my fins and snorkel and allowed them to come. But they came because there was a friend of mine who came from Nashville, and she's a dean of a university there, very scholarly. Didn't believe in animal communication. I told her to please practice with her snorkel and mask before we went out to this island for the day. Did she in the pool? No. So when we were snorkeling, I'll get up so everyone can see. When we were snorkeling in the bay, Lanai, she starts to have a panic attack. So I had already put out a request to say, dolphins, if you're close by, please visit us. But typically, when I put a ESP telecommunication request, sometimes it takes 15, 20 minutes. So as we were snorkeling, she has the panic attack, and I said, well, let's go back into the shore. So I was on my back and let her hang on to my arm because she was freaking out, really. And then all of a sudden, I could hear the dolphins coming. So and all these, there was probably, 70 to 80 dolphins everywhere. And we were close to the shore enough. It was just her and I, no other humans. And I said, are you okay if I take some footage? Are you okay with getting back to shore? Oh, yeah. She was all happy, the dolphins. But mind you, she doesn't believe in dolphin communication. So when the dolphins came, I asked them, can you please check on her while I'm filming? Right? So 4 of them left the group and did a beeline to her. And you know what she said when the dolphins came to her, which was close to shore? Did Dove send you over? And she was changed just by having an actual experience of the dolphins coming, knowing that she was in distress. So they really weren't coming, I basically said, will you come and play? But they came when she was in distress, not just me asking, will you come and play with us? Because there was a lot of other people. So they actually left after they let me film them. Then I went back to shore, and then, so it was just for us, my girlfriend, and now she's changed. She believes in, dolphin communication. So thank you for letting me talk with you today.
I definitely have many questions, and I imagine that the audience may be with some questions as well. But I want to share that I am with you with the I call it psychic communication or unspoken communication. And I think that is an available skill set that anyone can begin to cultivate if of interest. But I'll share that I was recently in a hotel room, and in the middle of the night, on one side of me was a barking dog, and on the other side of me was a crying baby, and a really, really crying baby. And I was in bed just speaking to the baby that they're safe, and that they're safe to feel whatever that is, and also they're safe to rest. And to the dog, the same. And so that is a way that I'm able to stay in my heart, even when there's potential triggers. And I've also practiced this on airplanes or just in general. I do it's not just a belief, but like I am in practice because I know it's profound. My ability to be able to create that Vesica Pisces or do that distance communication simply by placing my attention and awareness there. So I share this because I'm with you. And for anyone who is maybe interested in like playing with this in their own way, do you think that that's something that is available for people to begin to practice on their own?
Oh, definitely. I think we sometimes as humans are forgetting our potential or the gifts that we all have been designed with. So I think just trying it out on a scenario, choosing not to react to a trigger, instead sending them gratitude, sending them like peace, trying, because remember, our electromagnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than our brain. So if we send out feelings of kindness and peace, those wave patterns will touch other people. And through walls, through time. So I just had a friend who had brain surgery, his second brain surgery. He's a survivor of stage 4 lung cancer. And of course I was, the fear was coming up, and then I thought, no, just practice on prayer. So why prayer works? It's not attached to a religion or, any church. It's the power of prayer is heart forward dynamics. We're combining our mind with the thoughts that we have with this immense amount of heart forward wave patterns going out. So he responded back today. This is 2 days after the brain surgery, saying he didn't have atrophy. He has 90%, because if you have brain surgery on one side of your head, it affects the other side of your body. And right before his operation, I texted him because I don't get headaches. But I was in so much pain right near my temple and right above my ear. And I said, by the way, is your tumor near your temple above your ear? And he said, yes. And I'm like, ow. I could like feel it. But the minute I acknowledged that it was his, and I basically practiced sending prayers to him, please watch over him, sending him healing, sending him love, sending him peace. It helped my anxiety. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think that we all have that empathic sensitivity, whether we're in current connection to it or not. And I know that authentic blessing and prayer have actually been measured in their bioelectric strength. And it is a very strong, high vibration to resonate in prayer or authentic blessing. And so it's just something to play with to see if it supports an individual in their well-being. And I always say, if it supports you in feeling good, like continue to lean in, be curious. And this is exactly what you've done in your attraction and awakening with whales and dolphins. It's continued to lean in. And I am curious, like when you communicate, whether it's with the pit bull in Washington or the dolphins in Australia, do you receive that communication like in English language within your own being, or how does it come through?
Yeah, I hear it in English. I also get pictures, and I also get movies. So, yeah. Like I mentioned to you when we came about birds. So there was some boys throwing sand on some wild doves. And so I said to them, if you just put out your hand and pretend like you're a tree, the wild doves will come and land on you. And out of nowhere, this white dove landed on my hand. And those boys who were throwing sand immediately put their hands up. Right, and that white dove went from their hand to the other boy's hand. They were brothers, back to my hand. So, I mean, I couldn't create that. But I think because I wanted to be angry at the boys, but I thought, how can I deal with this in a way that shows them we're in connection with the birds, right? Where there are, they know us, they feel us. So it was a miracle. I mean, I think it's like a miracle, but I think that those things of, I didn't hear the bird talking. All I did was make a statement and the bird came. But I've had like a dog come up to me and say, I have an earache, can you tell my parent? And then me walk over to the parent who I don't know and say, excuse me, your dog has an earache. I have an earache, and the man, and I'm like, yes, and your dog is an emotional conduit of you. So a lot of the times the animals feel our feelings and then have that expression. So I haven't heard in other languages, but I don't really speak fluent other languages, only bits and pieces.
Yeah. No, it makes sense that you would receive it in the language that you're most familiar with. And movies, that's really interesting. So do you feel like there's often these themes in movies that these dolphins or other animals are using, like movies as a symbol to represent a certain message?
The movie part is an animal communicator back in the 90s asked me to read her cat and horse. And I had never done it through a photograph before, so that was the first time. And the minute I tuned into the cat, it was the first time I talked to the cat, all of a sudden I was inside the cat's body moving. So I could hear the jazz music, I could see the perspective of the cat, I saw the checkered floor, then we went out to the cat door, then we went up in a big tree, then we came back down. So that was like, experience it as a movie. We came back in, we licked some milk, and then all of a sudden I was back in the room. It was here in Santa Barbara. And because she asked me, is my cat happy? So I think all of us, if we just practice, saying, would you like to have a conversation? So we do this ESP, telecommunication, nonverbal communication, all the time. We're thinking, I'm going to be, and what animals, our first language that we ever learned is picture talking. So pictures in our head, we project them. So we're always having different movies. We create them all the time. Like when I get home, I'm going to eat this, and then I'm going to sit, lie down, or then I'm going to go for a walk, and then we're visualizing all of that. So we're picture talking. So any animal that we're in relationship with sees our picture. That's why they know when you're about to come home, because you already visualized driving home, right? So that's why we're unconscious breathers, but we can consciously make a choice to say, I would like to communicate with this. I don't know, has anyone seen Charles Mackey's art? He was the one that drew the boy, the fox, the mole, and the horse. Well, guess what? Now a little baby fox is coming into his house, right? So he's drawing these, where all the animals have voices. So we do it a lot in movies. Animation, all the animals have voices. So why do we doubt that in our everyday life, that they're not communicating? If we send a picture of and we just try it, we could, why not? We have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm
I get
understanding you.
It's like it's built in each person to be able to communicate.
Yeah, I feel you in your passion and your desire to share with people that there is far more beyond what we see or what we're taught is reality. Mm-hmm. And I'm understanding you more now that you have a visual experience that is in movement, that you can see in detail, that puts you in the lived experience of the animal that you're connecting with through ESP. And that's really fascinating. And it makes me like so curious about your particular soul and everything that you've experienced like on this water planet, because it's my sense that in my perspective, perhaps there's been many a past life with this same passion and same mission to share that humanity is in a very close relationship with nature. And perhaps you would agree with me that it's not actually separate. And we're here to share the message of remembrance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I call it the dolphin memory movement. So in my book, I talk about the remembering. Like, just most scientists say we're only accessing 20 codes. And some scientists say, oh, we don't need the other 44 codes. And I say that's rubbish. Those extra 44 codes are part of our ancient memories. Those are sacred. And when we wake them up, then we can remember that we have connection. You know, we have those beautiful things that we call synchronicity. It's like I have a little bunny, and lately, I let her free roam in the grass, but I get messages if a hawk's close by. Like, I'm close, and then I'm like, oh, okay, gotta get the bunny. So, and then they show themselves. A lot of the times, you know, hawks are so fast, but they're recognizing that I have a special bond with my bunny. So they're honoring my relationship. When I was in Maui, there's lots of feral cats. And one of this cat leaped to actually attack Halo, my little white bunny. And I said, I just looked at him like a direct kind of energy and said, no, that's not right. And then all of a sudden he like looks at me and goes, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. So
he went unconscious in his trigger.
Yeah, he had a trigger. He was just doing something instinct. Mm-hmm. And then I said, remember, I'm friends with you and she's my buddy, you know. So.
Yeah, and I think that's real as far as our own prayer for safety or protection. The same way that you feel a connection and care for your bunny, like we can have that relationship as we pray for peace and safety of humanity or our family or our friends or ourselves. I feel that same like energetic resonance can be true. And I do want to revisit something you said about the breath, because I like feel it intuitively, but my logic like wasn't fully understanding.
Okay.
And it was about, you said every other breath. So to me, that signals either the exhale or the inhale comes from water.
From the ocean.
From the ocean. And I would love for you to share more about that so I can understand.
Okay, so the cool thing about us, we're born in the womb, right? And when we come out as a baby, we match the planet exactly. The 70 to water, you know, the water to body mass equation. So that's not just like, you know, coincidence. That is divinely designed in each of us. So the breath, why, like, I've even heard kind of communication from the ocean. Like, the ocean loves us more than we could ever imagine. And the ocean affects our weather. It gives life to, like, all the rainforests. So it's giving, when I say every other breath, it creates oxygen on our planet. So we breathe courtesy of the ocean. And then a tree and a plant is doing like all the rainforest. But really, they exist because we're on a water planet. And they're made up of water and cells, too.
Cool. Yeah, that makes me think like how attractive it is for people to visit the beach or visit another body of water, and how like being at that ocean front and breathing with that image and sensory experience is a pleasurable experience for everyone that I've ever like interfaced with. Like I haven't really met anyone who was like, no, I don't like breathing at the ocean. Like everyone enjoys that experience.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is connected to what you were describing. And I am curious if I can like see by a show of hands, have any of you seen dolphins, like specifically here in Santa Barbara? And whenever I see dolphins, I feel like giddy. I feel hopefulness, and it feels like a special experience. And so I've never thought so much about dolphins until this evening, and I'm grateful for this. But it's like, I just want to offer that, like, consider how it feels when you do have that like special moment of seeing dolphins. And now with this new information, we may have an expanded and more insightful experience the next time that occurs. Perhaps it is through your ESP asking to see dolphins that it happens next.
That would be nice. But also, when I had Michael up here, our blood moves like an ocean wave. Our breath is courtesy of the ocean. We have saltwater tears like the ocean. So we are aquatic. We are shaped by water. Water is part of our cells. We can't have all of our memories in our body held together. That means we have 700 trillion water molecules communicating every day. So we have to decide how we want them communicating. Because if we have 70 trillion cell memories, I know when we think about it, it's mind-blowing because we just think we're walking around like we're a mass, but we're actually fluid walking around. We're a wave. And when you think about that Vesica Pisces, why do people are able to surf in the ocean? Because it's the same shape as creation. The Vesica Pisces, the fish, the dolphin. It's the same geometric shape. And for whatever reason, they're able to surf on the wave. Because it's the same shape that's almost the creation of life. So a surfboard is a Vesica Pisces. And all those things, when I lived on an island for 9 years, I was always reminded of all the different connections. So when you ask me, I've seen the worst part about humanity. I experienced the worst part of humanity, but I've also experienced the most beautiful side of humanity. And those, when you have cracks in your heart, then light and sound can go in there and change it. Because I only heard that humpback whale because I was being hurt as a child. I didn't know what love was until I heard the humpback whale. Then I felt peaceful because it was like our ancient memories know how much we're loved and how we are love and how connected we are. We just forgot, or we're forgetting, or we remember a little bit. And we feel it in music and art and dancing and gardening and making love. All of those things are creating. We're moving our water waves, with all of that.
Yeah. And I feel like there's another connection to our elemental experience. To me, I relate the emotional body a lot to water. And yet we live in a society and a culture that desires us to be the same every single day so we can continue to show up for our jobs or whatever it is. And so as I acknowledge that my emotional range is like the waters of my own embodied experience, then I can be more gracious with myself that I am just like the high tide and the low tide, and that I am impacted by solar and lunar energy because I am water. And I feel like that allows me to have a more compassionate relationship with myself.
Yes. So true.
Yeah.
I love the way you said that.
Thanks. Sweet. Well, I feel like I do want to turn to the audience here soon. We'll come back together after that for a final few questions. But is there anything else that you would like to share before we open it to the audience?
I'd like to hear what if anyone has any questions or
Sweet.
comments.
We will pass you the mic for any questions.
I have a comment that leads to my question.
Okay.
It really made me think about some things. I've had some experience with dolphins, And the first one was at SeaWorld, where people were feeding the dolphins. The dolphins would jump up on the side of the tub that they were swimming around in, and people would hold the little fish. The dolphin would come up, eat the fish, and the partner of the people would pet the fish. I wanted to pet that dolphin so bad. I had never at that time touched a sea creature like that. And so I kept holding mine up, but I was by myself, so I couldn't touch the dolphin. So I had one little half a fish left. I held it out. This dolphin came up and took that fish and then jumped up on the side and let me pet it. And it was so heartfelt. And then in Santa Barbara, a friend and I were walking, and there's this dolphin walking with us, swimming with us, and we're walking. Well, we just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So again, we're having an emotion. So we're finished going on that side, we're tired. We're going to turn around. We come the other way. So did the dolphin, and followed us back to where we were. Now, the other experience I had with a dolphin was at SeaWorld, it was in Mexico, where they let you swim with the dolphins. But there was no connection with the dolphins. I didn't feel any. I was like just, the dolphins were doing the tricks they were trained to do. So there was no connection for me and the dolphins, which leads me to think, especially as you're talking, that dolphins are much more right-brained than they are left-brained. And I'm wondering how much, do you have some stories about their intellect? I think the one about the plastic would be an example of them using their left brain.
Or just past the leaf of peace, right? They know that we were arguing on land, like major arguing on social media. And for them to acknowledge that. I've also, once I didn't feel safe on the beach. It was down in Carp, Summerlin, and I was walking by myself, and it was, so it's like, they're thinking all the time. If you look at, when I showed the brains of the human brain, the dolphin brain, their folds are so complex. A dolphin, if they're caught in captivity, they won't leave that one dolphin in the net. They jump in with the dolphin. So that's not how we think. Is that, intellect? That is beyond a sense of compassion and care to be conscious, like we wouldn't leave our other family member. That's thinking. Right? Not thinking is saying, I don't care about you. And well, the beautiful thing about our heart and emotions and our thinking brain is they're always connected, and we have neurons communicating. I think there's more pathways with a dolphin and a whale. I once was dealing with, I got attacked 11 times on Maui by humans while I lived there for 9 years. And one time I was having a horrific time, like renting a place and people coming in my room when I wasn't there. And just, so when I was out, I jumped in off a friend's boat, a new friend. So I was having horrific stuff happen. And I had a young humpback whale and her baby do a beeline to me. So I'm out in the middle of the ocean. I just wanted to listen to the whales sing, right, to feel comforted. They came right up to me as close as where Jacob is. And you know what the whale said? Everything's going to be all right. And stayed with me until then. There was a guy who jumped off the boat, was swimming towards us. But the baby was so young, I think the baby was only like a day or two old. So she moved right in front of me. Her tail was probably inches from my stomach. Is that thinking? I mean, she knew exactly where I was. She knew exactly what I needed. I mean, when I bring up indigenous cultures, they have conversations with animals. And we need to remember that we can have conversations with animals, that they are our helpmates. They're here to be, our help, to help us make decisions, to be kinder to ourselves, to be kinder to others. So to me, all animals are thinking. I was sharing to a small group of you in the very beginning about the snow leopard. When I asked the snow leopard at the zoo, how are you doing? My first question. That's a silly question. How do you think I'm doing? I'm bored, I'm lonely, and I miss companionship. That's a thinking. I think for us, we've just forgotten we're part of the animal kingdom. And when we talk about a movie, like an animation movie, all the animals are talking. We watch it and then we just, but that's actually just because we can't always hear them talking. I don't have my radio transmitters on all the time to hear all the conversations. I pretty much only hear animals if they're needing something or distress or it's through a request from a human animal. So the human animal is an animal, part of the animal kingdom. I think about that story of Noah's Ark. Why were there only a few humans on the ark and all the animals in pairs? It's because God knew we're going to need some help. I just think that for all of us, I hope to encourage you that we have animals communicating to us to help us. And if we possibly could be open to that, just to even entertain those thoughts, to wonder about it, to even try it. I once saved this bee in the ocean. I did kind of like the rescue, where I swam sideways and held it on my arm, and the waves were hitting me, and the bee. Then I walked up, with my snorkel and my fins, and I put it on a bush. A couple hours later, I rode my bike up the hill. Guess what? Bees. I was outside watching the sunset, and zzz, landed on my heart. A bee. Is it the same bee? But it was kind of like, thank you. Is that a thinking? I don't know. We learn so much from animals. You think about bees and hives. We learned about the structure of hexagons and how strong they are. Bees don't make circles because that's not very strong. They make hexagons. What else have we learned? Dragonflies, we learned how to create helicopters. So if we're more conscious about how intelligent animals are, it can only help our intelligence. How many spectrums of color do we see in? 3. How many spectrums of colors do dragonflies see in? 32. That means they're seeing holographic, dimensional, infrared, everything about us. So when you see a dragonfly hovering, they're dimensional beings, seeing so much of our world. So I'm a fan for all animals. I love humans. And I don't like when they're not nice. But, we're all a work in progress.
When I was probably 8 years old, my father, who was a very playful person, drove from Chicago to Miami, where John Lilly was studying dolphins. And I got in the tank with Elwar, who was a captive dolphin, and I made a mistake. They put me in the tank, and Elwar started circling around, and I thought it was because I was in my underpants that he was circling me. I thought he was, that I'd made a social faux pas. But I got to pet him. I certainly got to be in his company. And John Lilly pioneered studying dolphins and psychedelics. And My father was a very playful person and loved animals, shared lots of animal stories with me. But I wanted to tell you that I don't think all captive dolphins were miserable. At least Elwar, the one I met, seemed playful and intrigued and interactive. I didn't know how to do better than to pet him back, but then they yanked me out of the tank.
He probably liked your energy. And, you know, he probably missed companionship too, at least someone who was kind and playful. After I had my dolphin epiphany when I was 14, 15, I checked out John Lilly's books. And I eventually met him years later in the 90s at a dolphin and whale conference on the Big Island. I think I shared earlier just that we all want to be wild and free. We don't like when someone is controlling us or manipulating us, or that's a human quality. Dolphins have the same feeling. So I've had a dolphin give me a leaf in captivity, and I sunk down into the water. This was like on Oahu back in the 90s. And so and that dolphin was lonely. So I just think that captivity isn't the best way to communicate, but I'm sure that that dolphin was happy that you got in the water with him. Most captive dolphins are given drugs. And eventually John Lilly did put electrodes to some dolphins' heads. They committed suicide, some really nasty stuff. So I think that we have to be conscious in how we communicate and interact with animals and with one another. But I think, and even taking medicinal plants, right? Medicinal plants, we have to, you know, I think he even gave the dolphins psychedelics. And dolphins are already in a heightened state. So I just think that is closer to, when I read all of his books and I was a child, I said he's doing it backwards. So instinctively, you know how children kind of know things? I felt like you don't teach a dolphin our language, expect them to enunciate words when they don't have a vocal box. You know, why can't we learn their language back to us, which is actually our ancient language of picture talking and, you know, telecommunication. So militaries, top secret stuff, do lots of work in this. And, you know, they don't want us thinking about it. But the reality is it's possible for everyone to be communicating with animals because we're designed to be connected. You know, that's the exciting thing. So thank you for sharing your story and yours too.
Well, I had two questions. One, okay, did it just awaken within you? How did you develop the skill set for communication? I know you mentioned when you were 14 or 15, you announced to your parents that this is what you were going to do, but like, is this something you sat down and studied? Did it just happen for you? How did that work?
So I was 14, 15. I announced to my parents, who were very straight up in the Bay Area, I wanted to do interspecies communication with dolphins. And they thought we have a Looney Tune as our daughter. So there's not really something that you can, you know, I guess study. But I did go to UCSB. And this is the cool thing. Like if you read Rick O'Barry, the person that I put in because what eventually happens when you start communicating with animals, like humans, you develop a love and you want to protect them. So all of us like have almost like we're all meant to be a custodian of each other and our planet and everything that lives on this planet. You know, for us when something is hurting, we're hurting. When we save a dolphin, we're saving ourselves, right? So what ended up happening was I went to career day. I was in, junior high. They said that I have to interview a dolphin trainer. And I said, no, I don't want to do captivity. This isn't interspecies communication to me. And they said, well, you either get an F or you go and interview a dolphin trainer. So I went to a marine world up in the Bay Area. My mom drove me there. We never had gone to a sea world before. So I'm like a land girl, I was more shocked to have that whale epiphany, but imagine feeling totally loved and accepted for who you are when you're actually getting beat up and, teased and abused in like your daily life. And all of a sudden you hear this sound that makes you just, I wept on the floor of my mom's City College library. So anyway, I went to this marine world, and for whatever reason, this trainer wouldn't introduce me to the dolphins, but I met a beluga. And it was in a little kiddie pool. A beluga? I'm sorry, they're like Arctic, they're cold beans. And that beluga saw me, so kind of where Jesse is standing, saw me, and I'm a kid, right? Overweight, shy, on the little edge of the water, just did a beeline to me and came up out of the water and opened his mouth, and I just put my hand in and touched the beluga. And at that moment, I made a promise to the beluga that I would work to help set the captive free. But when I say set the captives free, it's us who need the freedom, because the way we perceive life, we won't let animals be free unless we feel free. Dolphins and whales are waiting for us to evolve our consciousness. A lot of humans are still into, I gotta control this. The only thing we can control is our choice about how we respond to something. Our choice. Do I want to be kind? Do I want to be loving to myself and others? That's the only thing we have a freedom about in our lives. Lots of crap and things will happen every day. But so I've actually done a lot of traveling to do this dolphin research, because no one was doing the interspecies communication except John Lilly. So I didn't want to do it his way, right? So when I went to UCSB, my dream that I had was I want to swim with wild dolphins. So, Elwood Beach, one morning, there I saw a pod. I took off all my clothes. I went into the water. I was naked, right? And I figured if I swam straight out, they had a choice. They could either continue swimming and be around me or divert. They swam, rubbed all against me, turned around, rubbed all against me, turned around, did it 3 times. And this seal is like looking at me, a harbor seal, going, why is this human like naked in the water? But it changed my life. And I actually got into art school from marine biology because my best friend died. And he and I used to do art together. So I did a huge dolphin drawing. I didn't think I was an artist. Underneath the water, a huge, merging to, and Hank Pitcher let me into art school at the College of Creative Studies. And what's so great about art is art allows us to perceive light and sound so differently than just approaching a skill in the thinking, in the science part. In fact, you're able to actually solve scientific problems by looking artistically at something. Like, think Leonardo da Vinci. He was an amazing artist, and he was also an inventor. Why? Because he was using both sides of his brain and seeing light and sound in certain ways that made him understand how to invent something. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
So,
I believe you mentioned earlier in your talk that dolphins turn off their left brain, or
Turn off
maybe
one side of their brain.
One side of the brain.
Yeah.
They intentionally do that, or can you explain that more?
Well, they get tired out in the ocean. So because they're conscious breathers, they choose every breath that they take. So for them to be able to rest, they almost put one of their brains like in a meditative mode. So Sometimes when you see them floating, that's why out in the Channel Islands, the big cargo ships T-bone into whales because they're doing that very thing, putting one side of their brain asleep so it can rest while the other one is conscious. They're conscious breathers. See, we go to sleep at night, we're not aware that we have to be conscious of our breath. We just assume we'll wake up in the morning, right? We're unconscious breathers. They're masters of conscious breathing. In fact, why I bring up Rick, because Rick was a dolphin trainer, and all of the flipper dolphins, there was 5 of them, they were all female because males weren't trainable because they had a one-track mind. They just wanted to procreate. So Kathy was the last female dolphin. And what changed Rick from the big bucks and the big cars and, zooming around in Miami was Kathy chose her last breath, didn't like captivity, and sunk to the bottom of the pool. And so she died in Rick's arms, and it woke him up. He's been an activist ever since. So he went from dolphin training, making big bucks. And when I met Rick, I met him at the Dolphin Conference, the same one I met John Lilly. I also met Jacques Mayol. So Jacques Mayol, has anyone seen The Big Blue? So it's based on his life that Luc Besson, he's a filmmaker, made this film called The Big Blue. And it's about his life of Jacques Mayol. And Jacques Mayol believed that if we turn more like a dolphin, we would be able to breathe underneath water, deeper distances. So it is so much about our breath, conscious breathing, like relaxing ourselves. It's a beautiful thing to realize that there's so much opportunity for each of us to kind of look into these areas and say, how can I expand my perception? Because if we see something differently, then that gets recorded into our cell memories, and then we make a different choice about it. If we just perceive, instead of someone, like if someone's being upset and angry, and then if we look at them and say, maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe someone just died in their family, a bit more compassion, then we record that in our cell memories differently, and we respond differently. I'm not saying everyone, but it gives us an opportunity to pass the leaf of peace a bit easier by having a different kind of understanding. Like a Native American would say, walk a mile in someone else's moccasin before you judge them. Like, we don't know everyone's life, up until this point. No one would know that I was abused, that I now, love animals and stuff. But really, it was those cracks that, physically, mentally, emotionally abused. And really doing the things. The best thing about John Lilly was he created the Samadhi tank, which was an environment like the dolphins and whales live in. So to float inside, to be free of gravity, to give your brain, it changes your DNA. So I think every place should have more Samadhi tanks, because it would give us an opportunity to tap into the aquatic, gifts and potential that each of us have.
Beautiful. No, that was wonderful. Thank you for that transmission. And even with the example of showers, we're attracted to that. It feels cleansing. It feels purifying. And for me, I love baths. I know that's not everyone's thing, but it is so soothing, and to just connect to the water in a way that feels really nourishing. I'm so grateful to be in Santa Barbara, where there is an abundance of ocean water as well as the natural hot springs that allow us to reconnect to that aquatic essence that is within us. Yeah. So
Science part about water, because we have all of our cells with the 10 molecules around all of our cell memories. When we walk into a water, like a shower, a bathtub, because our chemistry is oxygen, like 60%, oxygen dissolves into water. So we actually become part of the water, part of why it feels so good, part of the shower, part of the pool, and why ocean is so powerful for us, because the mineral content helps like relate to the salt and mineral content of us. So not only, it almost supersizes the water effect.
Yeah.
Even putting our feet, if you don't like swimming in the ocean, just walk barefoot in the sand, because all the sand is really made from, seashells all crumbled up and fish poo.
Nutrient dense fish poo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a final few questions for you that are just little questions to better understand you personally, and this will be to close us out.
Okay.
So you've dropped a few names of other researchers, and it doesn't need to be necessarily someone that you've mentioned already, but I want to know who has been your greatest influence and why.
Well, I'd have to say a dolphin and whale, but a human, I love Einstein. And right before he passed away, he was actually working on heart forward dynamics. So he realized that it's not just the science that will bring us through, and knowing about how, like when we watch the eclipse, light bends around gravity. So right now we're moving through space at a speed and time, but we're pulled, so we get to sit here, from gravity, all these invisible energies. So why not believe in another invisible energy, like the electromagnetic, and us being able to communicate with animals? I don't know, did I answer that?
That was great.
Yeah.
He was a pioneer of the heart science.
Well, towards the end, most people don't know that unless you start researching, but even some of his quotes about how we've built a modern day society to focus on the rational mind instead of our intuitive mind, because he believed it's really our imagination that is greater than knowledge. Because when we imagine things, then we tap into possibilities, right? And I think that's where the medicinal plants and psychedelics help people. They help people think about possibilities. The flotation tank help people think about possibilities. Music, animal relationships help us think about other possibilities. So, yeah.
Sweet. My next question for you is, if you were stranded on an island and you could have one book with you, what would that book be?
I don't know. I love all the stories in the Bible because they're just so metaphorical. And they even talk in the Old Testament about how ask the animals and they will teach you. Speak to the... So that would be a cool book. And I've read a lot of biographies on different people. I think if I was deserted on an island, I would probably just be interacting with all the island people, island things, not reading. It would be so bloody hot. I'd be going in the water. I don't know. Sorry.
No,
it's hard to read when you're hot all the time.
Yeah, totally.
In the tropics, try living there.
So my final question for you is one that I am creatively asking. If you could swim with dolphins with anyone, dead or alive, who would you want to bring alongside you to witness the dolphins and whales?
I would love to swim with an orca. They're the biggest dolphin. And
Where are orcas?
well, there's resident pods all over the world. And I'm working on a film about a captive orca to hopefully prove animal communication by going to have encounters with her and then ask her questions and then go and investigate to see what she says. because people are saying she's deaf and all these other excuses why they're not releasing her back to sea pen or back with her family. Humans, gosh, I loved my grandma, but she passed last year at 100 and nearly 6. And her last name is Beach, like the ocean. So she hadn't been in a pool in like 30 years. But I think I would like to bring all the skeptics, like people who don't, I would like to just bring them in full force, like a huge, and then have all the dolphins and whales just line up. I've had like dreams where all the whales and dolphins swim in and they're like, you called us. But I would like to have, all the people who are doubters and don't believe, it would be nice for all of them to have because once they have this supernatural encounter, then like there's a place in Australia called Monkey Maya where the dolphins swim in and people just wade in and they're right there. So those dolphins are choosing to come in to have relationships with humans to help them. I think to help evolve them so they are believers that dolphins are making choices. They're using their intellect to have communications with humans. So I just think I would bring all the other people who don't.
Yeah. That's very on brand. Well, thank you, Dove, for sharing your voice and your passion with us tonight at the District House. It's been a joy to get to hear from you, and I super appreciate all that you are, creating and living for. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Hannah Jo.